We have a blessed with a lovely place to be. All right.
You able to send Supervisor Madrone a link for the meeting, please?
Oh, I did send him. Did he just email you?
Yeah, I think he needs
Okay.
another one 1 minute ago.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shall we call to order while he's in transit, shall we say?
As long as he don't call, we're fine.
I have 4 o'clock.
Okay, Stevie can call roll while I put Supervisor Madrone into the meeting,
Okay.
All right.
please.
Well, we'll call this meeting of the Humboldt County Association of Governments Board of Directors to order. This meeting is held pursuant to AB 361 and the HCOG Board Resolution 21-24, which waives in-person public meetings as long as there is another means for the public to participate. And our first item of business is a roll call.
All right, Mayor Jones,
Here,
Councilmember Burgell, Councilmember Avis,
Present.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Here.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember West,
Here.
Chair Johnson,
Here.
Pack Member Arroyo,
here,
Pack Member Allstrand.
here.
All right.
Steve Madrone is here now. Apologies.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right. Our first item of as the adjournment of the HCOG board and reconvening as the Policy Advisory Committee, and a presentation from Caltrans and project manager Jeff Pimentel for the Eureka Arcadia Corridor project.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Can.
All right, great. So anyway, thanks for having me. So just the latest update on the Indianola Intercrossing. We're working on the repackaging and re-advertisement. Design is proceeding with Kleinfelder, our consultant, and our internal Caltrans team. Right now, our target date for delivery and final plans of the project is May 11th. There's some risk that may push a little bit later in May as the team is working on some final modeling analysis for the column supported and embankment portion of the project that we're doing, furnishing the design for right now. So I plan to have some more updates with firmer information at that, probably at the next board meeting, as well as a cost estimate update, hopefully by the next meeting. I think at the last meeting, I did mention that we feel that there's some risk that the cost estimate may come in higher. Our structures estimate did come in about 35% higher than the original estimate, which was about $2.7 million more. But the other items we've yet to get an update on. As I mentioned, Kleinfelder's finishing their analyses, so they're right now determining exactly how long and the spacing that these concrete columns need to be under the embankment portions of the undercrossing, and we expect to have that information here within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So things are moving quickly right now. Team's aware of the urgency to get this out. We're really trying to ensure that we get a full 2023 construction season. At this point right now, the schedule's penciling out to show that we'd be re-advertising at some point in the fall after we deliver, and then having a contractor on board hopefully by the final part of the year. And unfortunately, that sounds like a long time from now, but if we deliver in May, we think that there could be a high likelihood that we may need to go to the CTC to request some amount of additional funds. I know, Beth, you were just in our meetings talking about that. We really have no kind of barometers to the magnitude of that, but to the positive, we did just discuss some of all the costs and unit items on all the other portion of the work, not related to the column support and embankment. And the bids previously had come in lower than our unit and bid and unit costs on what we had estimated previously. And kind of the latest update I've gotten is that a lot of those bid items that maybe were a little on the conservative side are now more in line with where some of the current unit costs are showing with the economic conditions. And so I guess to the positive there is that we're maybe not seeing a big influence on a lot of the price increases on that, but nonetheless, fuel prices have gone up a lot. It's a long job. There's be a lot of fuel used by the contractors on this job just for their equipment and whatnot. Steel prices have gone up and just everything. So I'll have more information on that and plan to come to the next board meeting to update the board on that. And then switching gears over to the mitigation. The snow mitigation has been graded and done, the planting done for quite some time, but the second portion of the mitigation, which is the Spartina eradication at Tuluwat Island, we did just get approval on our co-op with the Harbor District on that. That was recently being routed for signatures and then moving to get a contract executed with RCAA to begin work on that portion of the mitigation. So that's moving forward successfully as well. So anyway, that was my update. Like I said, I'll be back next month to give more information, but just like to check in with these and be sure you guys have the latest information. So with that, if anyone has any questions,
Thank you for
I'm
that.
here to answer them.
Thank you for the update. And do anybody have a question or comment for Jeff? And does not appear so, but thank you for the update and where we're at. I appreciate that.
Chair Johnson, I do see Councilmember Arroyo's hands up.
I missed that one. Thank you. Go ahead there.
Thank you. Sorry, I was having a little bit of an internet freeze, so I'm glad you you brought that up. Thank you, Beth. So I know I've asked about this before, but I'm not sure where it stands because a lot has evolved with this project. So I understand that the bridges were linked to the non-motorized crossing, particularly over Eureka Slew. And I'm wondering how this project's potential cost escalation and timeframe will impact the trail.
I'm sorry. So you mentioned first that with regards to, did you mention the Eureka Slew and non-motorized trails?
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, I know that at least the Humboldt Bay Trail project description talks about, in the last I heard, it included utilization of that crossing over Eureka Slew and the bridge enhancement there. As part of the trail project. If that's changed, then I would stand corrected. But yeah, I just wondered, and I know that throughout the life of this project, it's been linked to the trail. So I'm curious how the items you're talking about today will impact that project moving forward.
Yeah, so a couple topics there. So the Eureka Slew bridges, and we're looking at replacement of both of those bridges. That's a separate project, but one that I am the project manager on as well. And you are correct that we are planning to construct non-motorized, separated by a physical barrier path for peds and bikes on those replaced bridges. That schedule is a little ways out, but I believe the delivery year on that project right now is slated for fiscal years 28-29. That's more driven by, it'll be a very intense, it'll be likely a environmental impact report and EIS in terms of like the level of environmental document, essentially kind of the level that we had with the Indianola undercrossing project. So the environmental timeline on that project is going to be a little extensive, but the schedule on that is more in line with trying to fit in a project of that magnitude and the funds that that project will need, and where those kind of fit in into the overall program for the department. So, but that is planning to include a separated path that will connect to Humboldt Bay Trail South. And as you mentioned, Humboldt Bay Trail South will be, the plan is that will be constructed. We'll use the old railroad trestle. And then with the development and construction of the Eureka Slew Bridge replacement project, we would connect into Humboldt Bay Trail South and bring that trail up onto the bridge, as well as have plans for how we manage and treat, peds and bikes to get on and off the bridges at, the various quadrants there north and south of the bridges. And then switching gears, but still related with regards to Indianola. Indianola has plans to construct a connection to Humboldt Bay Trail South from Indianola. So there will be a connection that will link that. So a cyclist on the trail would be able to travel on a paved path onto Indianola, and vice versa. If you're on Indianola, you'd have a paved path going underneath 101 once we have the undercrossing constructed to be able to jump on the trail, then head north or south from there. So that is part of the plans for the project there as well.
So will the delays that you're talking about and any potential cost escalation mean any impact to any of those projects you just mentioned, or are they kind of independent from one another?
They're independent. I mean, it won't have any impact with regards to construction of Humboldt Bay Trail South itself, as the county's, building that themselves. The department did make made financial contributions to the trail project, but that's not affected at all by that. That's out of a kind of a different program. And any cost increase in the project, I think that I don't have the dollars in front of me, but a simple short connection of Indianola to Humboldt Bay Trail South is a very, 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 very small portion of the project in terms of cost. So being that that's something I know that Coastal is requiring from us, in terms of whether, if the question is, could that be on the chopping block or potentially reevaluated, I'd say the answer is no to that, but that'll definitely be a component of the project and is essential to it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's hard to tease apart for me some of the project elements and how they, I remember the piece about the Coastal Commission's decision being that, for the 101 corridor project to move forward, that the trail project had to move forward concurrently. So I don't know if that's an oversimplification of the facts, but anyway, I just wanted to make sure that, one wasn't jeopardizing the other.
Yeah, well, and, to your point about, managing the schedules of each in terms of, because, Bay Trail South is going to be coming online, relatively soon. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but there'll no doubt need to be coordination in terms of our construction activities, those construction activities, to be sure that, everything's coordinated well in getting all the project scope constructed as it's intended to be. But we do have regular meetings with, Hank and Humboldt County through our oversight process that we have. And just, coordinating, being that the projects are adjacent to each other. So those conversations are happening, and both teams are aware, with their consultant GHD who's working on that. So, I think we'll have a positive outcome, but definitely appreciate those questions, and happy to have a positive answer to it.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I'm always going to have questions about this one. And thanks for
I love it. No, it's all good. Thank you. Keeps us on our toes.
Big projects and a lot of work. Any other questions for Jeff? Okay. Seeing none. Next item is public comment on non-agenda items. Reserved for public comments on matters which the PAC has jurisdiction but are not on this agenda. and those public comments would be limited to 3 minutes. And do we have any online now?
We do have a caller. If you have questions on non-agenda items, now is the time to press *9 and raise your hand. It doesn't look like we have any comments on non-agenda items.
All right, thank you for that. We'll close well, we will hold it open in case someone comes in late, but at this time, we'll move to consent calendar. For packed items, we have 6, it looks like. First, Assembly Bill 361 findings, approval of the meeting record, approval of Ferndale's 2122 LTF claim, transportation Article 3, 2% allocation request, the 2122 low carbon transit operators, LC top, and approval of Blue Lakes local transportation fund claim. Does anybody wish to pull anything? If not, we will entertain a motion.
Gordon Johnson would move that we accept the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Yes. Supervisor Madrone. Come back to you. Mayor
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember Burgell. Councilmember Avis.
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar.
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember West.
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Pack Member Arroyo.
Yes.
Pack Member Allstrand.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And there are no items removed from the consent calendar. And if we don't have a public comment at this time, we will close it.
I do not see any public comment.
Okay, we will close public comment. And by motion, we will reconvene as the HCOG board and approve the PAC recommendations. We can get a motion.
So moved. Second. Jack West.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get another roll call?
Yes. Supervisor Madrone.
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember Burgell.
Yes.
Councilmember Avis.
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar.
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember West.
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes. Thank you. And at this time, item 9 is a board discussion regarding resuming in-person meetings. And I believe our executive director Burks has this one.
Yeah, thank you. So, thanks for being here for this light agenda, but this is our one sort of discussion topic. The plan, I wanted to get the board's take on this about resuming in-person meetings. We would go back to the City of Eureka chambers. They have the ability to do hybrid meetings there, including that any of you could remain remote if you needed to. And so my recommendation would be is that if we want to go back to this meeting, to go back in person, that we also continue making these AB 361 findings, and that gives flexibility so that any board member that needed to participate remotely for any reason would be able to. It also gives flexibility so that the TAC and the SS TAC could continue meeting remotely for a time. And I think that way, it doesn't require you to be all virtual, but I think it's really nice for the SS TAC and the TAC to have that flexibility for a little bit longer. We have members that would need to travel a really long way, especially on the TAC. We have people coming in from Orleans and Humboldt, and sometimes I think we get better participation. And I know that there also have been some concerns with some folks far away that aren't able to be vaccinated, and they've expressed concerns about coming in for meetings. So I think at this point, I'd like to hear from the board, but I'd say my recommendation is that we go back to the hybrid meetings, and that at the same time, though, that the board would still every meeting consider making those AB 361 findings. And then just one other little update about the chambers of the City of Eureka. When we looked into it before, we thought there might be some extra costs to have the city staff be with us when we do those meetings. They hadn't received all the equipment yet, and so they weren't sure if they need to have like basically a technician present during our meetings. But Pam at the city has told me that actually the system is really easy to work, that she's confident she can train Debbie and I in that system, and that we'll be able to do it on our own without any extra cost to HCOG. So that was nice to hear and get a better understanding of how we'll work that. So if we want to do that, Debbie and I'll get trained up, and hopefully we'll be able to run the meetings as well as the city does. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for that. And I can say we had our in-person council workshop today to set our fee schedule for the year as part of our budget process, and it was nice to meet in person. But I can understand wanting the option for some of the other tax, and I think it's a good thing for participation if need be, especially from remote areas. But does anybody, board members, have any questions or comments? What's the board's take on it?
Yeah, I have a question, Mayor Jones from Blue Lake, and a comment. I was looking up the stats for the number of deaths in the United States. The 7-day average of deaths in the U.S. is at 1,055. In California, the average 7-day deaths 120. And then the other thing I wanted to ask was, we are also having meetings at the City Council, but we are masking at the meetings. Will we mask up at the April 21st meeting if that's the route we want to go?
My understanding, and actually I would defer to either Councilmember Arroyo or Councilmember Vergel what the current practice is, but my understanding is if you're fully vaccinated, it's optional. So can you, is that correct?
That is correct. It is optional. And we've found good success with having the hybrid meetings. That way you can participate both ways. We aren't required to wear masks. Some of us do, but certainly it's not a requirement. Anything to add, Natalie?
No, thanks.
Yeah, at our board of supervisors meetings, we're doing a hybrid, and we're recommending masks. I'm certainly wearing my mask still, but a lot of people are not. Most people are distancing, and so far we've had calm meetings, which I'm very grateful for.
Is there an opportunity to physically distance? Because I remember the way the chambers were set up, we were sitting pretty close together on the dais there. I'm just throwing that out there.
Sure. I would say that they are pretty close up there. I don't know that all of you would be able to sit up there at the same time if you want separation. I know there's a chair between me and the wall, and there's a chair over on the other side that no one sits in. But other than that, so there are 8 of you. Yeah, I think it might be tricky. Natalie?
There are 6 on the dais, and then there's the seats that our city attorney and city manager usually sit at. The other PAC members, so Caltrans and HTA, take, and then staff seats. So it would be tight. I'm trying to think of a time when we've had maximum turnout when we used to meet in person, and it always seemed like it worked out. It never seemed crowded, but that's because there was always inevitably 1 or 2 people missing. So my sense is that it doesn't allow for 6 feet of social distancing, certainly. So if there were folks who would like to continue to participate remotely, that might allow us to use that hybrid format effectively. But if we were all going to be in there, it might be a little closer than some are comfortable with. And I'm perfectly happy to mask in there. It has been helpful to converse to some degree to see expression. But of course, I think public health is the primary responsibility that we have to maintain. So, yeah.
Any other comments, questions, feedback?
Well, down here in Rio Dell, we've had 2 meetings this month that have been in chamber with the option of, if you want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask. If you have not been vaccinated, you must wear a mask. And we also do it with hybrid, so you can call in or Zoom in, and it's worked very well. No problems that I've seen.
I think that the key is to remain flexible. There is a new variant that has popped up. It's another B variant, and they're not quite sure how virulent it is, but it's seeming to make a few antenna twitch. We don't know how contagious it is. And if not this, then some of the road, something else will come up. And I think that the rule of thumb that we need to play by is that we may be going in and out of different statuses in terms of face-to-face meetings, masking, social distancing for a period of time until something else really significantly affects the virus, because it is does have a strong ability to mutate. I heard a great explanation today about mask wearing from a government official who says that the government is very clear that we're going to get something else coming down the road. Nobody in Washington believes that we're over the hump. And that is, think about your mask like a raincoat. When it's raining outside, you put on a raincoat. If we have a bad infection or a high contagion rate, wear a mask. If you feel comfortable that it's hot and low and you want to take your mask off, it makes sense too, for people who like to walk in the rain. So I think it's really a personal setup at this point with some, I think agencies should err on the side of caution for the protection of the public and for their members. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, that's my take on things, is we have the option of being at the meeting in a hybrid format or zooming in from remotely, and we would have the option to have a mask or not have a mask.
Right.
I know that as a chair, it would be hard for me personally to speak and enunciate clearly. I also took notice that Council Member Arroyo feels like I do. It's hard to get emotion and intent from facial characteristics when you have a mask on. And so there's a lot of different nuances.
But yes, one of the benefits of Zoom is that I can see your facial expression. I think you were speaking sarcastically there, in effect.
No, I was serious about not being.
The other thing is that, Mike, that for those of us in the transportation arena, looking at our carbon footprint is also something that's important for people who come long distances. I know some folks have a 50-mile round trip or 100-mile round trip to attend certain meetings, and it's significant mileage that's being put on. So I think keeping the options available at the hybrid I'm very much in favor of that.
I see, Supervisor Wilson Madrone.
You get 2 for 1 here today. We were both able to ultimately make it. So if I'm there as an alternate, hybrid's fantastic. That's what I support. And if there's not enough room at the diocese, I would probably just stand somewhere in the room where I could have enough space. But I'll let Mike speak for himself.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. And I feel like if you want to wear a mask, they can. I recommend an N95 if you're protecting yourself, and other masks if you're protecting others. And so, yeah, I'm good with whatever you think is moving forward. I'm supportive.
Okay.
So now that Mike's here, if there's any votes, I'll let Mike be the guy. He's the member, I'm the alternate. Just to be clear.
Well, I think staff is looking for direction and confirmation here at this point. And I think with the hybrid format, we all have the opportunity to meet in person if we want, and not if we can't or decide not to. And
the sense that I get is that we're giving direction, which is to go ahead and proceed with the hybrid format beginning in April. Thank you.
That's where I'm at. That's the sense that I'm picking up from everybody at this point.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I will say, by making these the 8361 findings, it gives us that flexibility so that if something changes, and if before April, public health guidance changes, we'll be clear on the agenda where the meeting's going to be, and we'll meet our obligations in terms of noticing. But this allows us maximum flexibility to kind of roll with whatever's coming next, and also gives us that chance to see each other, hopefully in April, for those of us who want to join in person. So thank you so much for having this discussion and direction. And Debbie and I will be excited to get our training and figuring out how to work the technology in the chambers at City Hall. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your research and work on this. And I think if anything, we've all learned over the years to be flexible and responsive. So
absolutely.
All right, with that, we will hear PAC and staff member reports. Beth is first.
Yeah, really not too much to report. I feel like I go to meetings almost every day about IDA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and we're probably I feel like right on the cusp of knowing more about what it means for our region. We kind of know what's coming to the state. The appropriations bill that was passed recently fully funded a lot of the programs that were in IDA, and so I think it's just in the next month or so it'd be we continue to join these working groups and different things to really get a better handle on which programs specifically specifically the formula programs that we receive money from, how much of a boost will we see? So I think we're soon to know more about that. What we know in the meantime is that a lot of the grant opportunities that are cyclical anyway, for example, the RAISE grant or the TRISA grant, which we've gone in on with Humboldt Transit Authority a couple of times just in the year since I have been here, we expect to see what will happen is those have bigger allotments. So, and similarly, active transportation program is getting more funding than it had before. So I think it's a good time in this year and certainly in the next couple of years to really, as a region be thinking and as jurisdictions be thinking about what projects we want to bring forward because there will be, for this short time, likely more funding in those programs than there's been in a long time. So just want to kind of plant that seed and get those discussions started. And we certainly have them at the TAC as well. The other news I will say is that our REAP grant, this was the Regional Early Action Planning this is a housing related grant that we got from HCD a while back. We have been waiting pretty much the entire time since I've worked at HCOG to get our contract back from HCD. It sort of went into some black hole. That happened just last week. So it's nearly, close to $1 million in funds, I think right around 800,000. And finally, we are getting access to that money to really start implementing the programs that we pitched in our grant. And so a good chunk of that money goes to Humboldt County for the Regional Climate Action Plan, and that is for the environmental review for that plan that all cities can tier off of, which should hopefully expedite permitting, and that's kind of the nexus to housing. So there's money set aside for that. There's money that each jurisdiction can access as sort of technical assistance. So we have this consultant bench idea where if you have an ordinance that's related to increasing the speed at which you could see housing built in your jurisdiction, something like I think the typical example is always like an accessory dwelling unit ordinance, which I know a lot of jurisdictions have already adopted, but that's sort of the prime example of something like that. If there is money in there to work with a consultant to, for each jurisdiction to basically say, hey, give me a share of this. And I'd like to work with a consultant to get that ordinance in place or this program in place. So there's also some money set aside for required tasks, which is education and outreach. So UNA has been working with all of the city planning staff and a representative from the county staff as well to figure out what their needs are and how we want to spend that money. We've already put those sort of different items forward. And now we finally can actually do them because the money is going to be arriving. So we're excited about that and looking forward to reporting more about, actually getting money out there and the programs that the different jurisdictions are taking on. And I think that's kind of it for now. And I'll conclude my report. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Any questions for Beth at this time? And don't see any. So we move to the Caltrans report.
Just one. Yep.
Supervisor Madrone, looked like your hand.
Wilson, I have a question for Beth. When does that money also include short-term rental ordinance help? I was just kind of wondering because if it's housing related, it's going to take a long time for us to build ADUs in the same loss that we've had from short-term rentals.
Yeah, I think it could. We can double check on that. Yeah, I think, just study the impacts of vacation rentals and figure out how to limit that so that more permanent housing becomes available. I think anything that, has that nexus to housing that people can live in on a permanent basis, I think that it will be well suited in there. So definitely, that needs to kind of flow through the planning staff that are working with UNA and make sure that gets brought forward, but it could be.
We had a report that this last year, the county got about $400,000 in Airbnb short-term rentals, basically. And that's about the cost of building one unit, right? And so, we were a long ways to go in terms of having the ability to replace that in terms of housing stock. And so I want to make sure that we consider loss of housing as important as building housing. So if someone could reach out on staff to John Ford and let him know that availability is there, that'd be great.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, any other questions for Beth? And seeing none, now we'll move to Caltrans reports.
Hi. Yeah, Beth had asked me to, excuse me, my voice, give an update on the US 101 299 off-ramp project and then the last chance grade. So I'm going to give some updates on that and then a couple of additional ones. If you've driven past the off-ramp there, it's looking pretty good. The landscaping's in and all the contract work for the off-ramp project is done except for some cleanup. So there's some removal of the construction entrance there at State Route 299, and then there'll be some strawing of that area, but pretty much done. Construction for the westbound 299 to northbound 101 US 101 entrance ramp begins in May 2023. So that would be Blue Lake traffic going to McKinleyville or Trinidad North. I'm gonna actually go ahead and share my screen so that you get a visual. Are you seeing that?
Not, there it is.
Okay, great. So similar to the off-ramp project, the existing auxiliary lane was designed using previous standards. So this project will extend the auxiliary lane.
Can you blow that up a little bit larger so we can see more?
Sure. Yeah, I hope it might lose some of its sharpness, but does that help?
It looks good there.
Okay.
Now it shrank again.
Okay, I'll try one more, but there we go. So just it gives the oncoming drivers merging from 299 to 101 more opportunity to make better timed merges. So again, that construction set to begin in May 2023. Any questions before I move on to last chance grade? This is a presentation that project manager Jamie Manioli gave at the District External Advisory Liaisons meeting, or DEAL. Just has some really great pictures that I wanted to show you guys. The team is on schedule and on budget to complete the environmental document phase in late 2025. The current critical steps are creating the project description, which involves refining and optimizing the 2 project alternatives, which we'll look at here. Here's the first project alternative F with the south portal. So bridge approach to the north portal, cross passages between bores, and open cut approach to the south portal. Space planning for tunnel operations and maintenance center, minimize visual impacts from the coastal trail. More on alternative F, alignment, adjust alignments to minimize impacts. And then the second alternative X, constructability meeting with the Caltrans construction. And as you can see here, it just kind of goes through some of the terraced walls and on either side, an end-to-end underground dewatering system, uphill terraced walls. So the key engagement steps include an open house, which will be held sometime this spring, and a mitigation working group rainstorm meeting likely to be held this August. And a little bit here more about that schedule. I also wanted to mention that Caltrans District 1 will be hosting a Tribal Transportation Summit listening session next Wednesday, March 23rd. And I wanted to go through the exciting news about the Clean California Local Grant Program. There were 16 projects submitted to District 1, and 7 of those projects were selected for funding, and 4 of those 7 were in Humboldt County. And $197,870 went to the City of Rio Dell for gateway beautification, and an additional $2.3 million to the City of Rio Dell for the Eel River Trail improvements. $5 million to the Hoopa Valley Tribe for the Hoopa 4 project, which includes debris removal, beautification, and enhanced community parks, and $903,000 to the Humboldt Bay Harbor District for beautification of the Humboldt Bay Peninsula. And also the governor has requested an additional $100 million for a second round of local project funding in the 2023-24 budget for this program, so there might be another chance for applicants that didn't receive an award this round. And also Caltrans is offering debrief meetings to applicants that didn't receive an award. And last, I wanted to mention that Caltrans District 1 recently submitted 2 state-sponsored non-shop pit project initiation document applications for 2 Humboldt County projects. The first is the Eureka Arcata Sea Level Rise project, and the second is Annie and Mary Trail Phase 2. So these are PIDs that are required by Caltrans before it can be programmed and proceed to the next phase of the project development. So we'll keep you posted on that. Are there any questions?
I have one. 299 east of Salyer, where there's a lot of slope work and looks like some fire mitigation work. How long will that be proceeding, do you think?
I don't have an answer for you today, but I can certainly follow up. Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
We usually make some motorcycle rides out 299 to Straw House and Weaverville, that area, and lately it hasn't been motorcycle friendly. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I'll look into it and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mike, this is Gordon Johnson, Rio Dell. I would like to add a couple things to the last chance grade report. And that is that during the environmental process, as Caltrans is kind of honing things in, they plan to bring in a contractor to help with the design. And this is not unusual on immense projects that are in the hundreds of millions or beyond that dollar amount. And that contractor ultimately may or may not be the contractor that does the construction of the project. Also, a couple things I'd like to add about alternate F, which is the tunnel. At the south portal, the Caltrans is adjusting the grade, lowering it 20 feet to stay out of Francis and the launch type material, which is pretty fluid, and they just want a better, more stable entrance into the tunnel. At the north portal, Caltrans has completed a tree survey, and based upon that, they adjusted the horizontal curve from 1,000-foot radius to 800-foot radius to miss small growth redwoods. So that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the update on the follow-up update. And Mayor Jones.
Thank you. I have a question from some of my constituents, Tatiana. Along 299, around Glendale turnoff, about across from the Humboldt Bay building, there is being stored some very large blocks of something. I don't know what they are, with black plastic over them. And many of my constituents have mentioned to me what a blight that looks like on the landscape there. And for a while, some homeless people, I think, were taking some of the materials and using them. The answer to that was Caltrans put a fence around it. It's very unattractive. It just looks horrible, and it is a nuisance. I think it's an attractive nuisance. And I was wondering, and you probably don't have this answer, but if you could get back to me, is there a timeline as to how long that stuff will be stored there? And if there's any idea of what I can tell my constituents about how long we're going to have to look at that as we go to our town.
Sure, yeah, and I'm familiar with what you're talking about, so I'll follow up with you on that.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. You can email me if you have an answer or something, but it's been brought up a couple of times at our meetings, and I just wondered if you knew if that was going to be permanent, because it really is not attractive at all. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I'll follow up.
Okay, thank you for that. Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of things. As far as the Caltrans highway cleanup, with what we call the snowdown, a whole new word's been created, right? We talked about blowdown, but this was heavy snow loads bringing down a massive amount of forest from basically Lord Ellis Summit through Willow Creek out to Burnt Ranch and Sawyer area. They've done a phenomenal job cleaning up the highway all the way to Willow Creek. That's almost completely done. And I believe they're working on the rest of it out through Sawyer and Burnt Ranch. But I want to applaud Caltrans for their quick action on all that. We're also got the CCCs out there helping with all the public roads that lead around the Willow Creek community. I wanted to put a thanks out to Julia Peterson with Caltrans for the Clean California program. She has and staff working with her have done a phenomenal job of outreach to create these free dump days, working with the various communities in Oric, Willow Creek, et cetera, to really start doing some really great projects like the funding to Hoopa and a lot of other communities for all the various projects. So thank you, Julia, for your incredible work. If you could pass that on, Tatiana, I appreciate that. One other thing is, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, if I just make my pack comment now, or would you prefer I wait?
Go ahead.
Okay, I figured we might be done with Caltrans feedback, but sorry to jump ahead. But so I wanted to thank Una and Stephen Luther and HCOG for their continuous engagement with the McKinneyville community on the multimodal study we're doing on South Central. And as some of you may know, South Central is the next most deadliest or injurious road in Humboldt County next to Broadway. So that's just important to know. And I want to thank Una and Stephen for not only participating there, but also with our MCMAC, the McKinneyville Municipal Advisory Committee, as we're developing our town ordinance and wanting to try and move away from this car-centric world we've created to something that's more walkable and bicyclable, et cetera, in our town center. So thank you, Stephen, and also Una and Beth for HCOG's engagement in those programs. Just wanted to offer that thanks. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Council Member Arroyo.
Thank you. I actually also had a PAC member update. Shall I proceed?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to give a couple of updates for Humboldt Transit Authority. And one of them is that we decided to, as a board, the main item of business on our most recent agenda was to continue the Samoa transit service. And so that hasn't seen a lot of ridership yet. So if you're in the position to communicate with anyone who lives in that community and is looking for transportation options, the current setup is that people can actually it's through a contract with CAE Transport. Folks can go from the Phyllis Rex Apartments, the new housing complex in Samoa, to the 3rd and H transit stop in Eureka, which is then a place to catch buses to other locations around Humboldt. So that is continuing, and I'm hoping that we'll see an increase in ridership, particularly as those apartments fill up and as people learn about the system. We're also continuing with our $50 monthly pass for now, and then we've extended to member agencies, the Humboldt Transit Authority, an option to have their employees utilize a monthly pass program. And that's sort of a pilot right now to see what the ridership looks like. But right now we just have the city of Eureka and the county of Humboldt participating. So it would be great to see more participation in that over time. And, hopefully other jurisdictions can utilize that too. I think those are the primary updates. The main thing was really trying to promote the Samoa route. There are a lot of families who have recently moved into those apartments, and hoping to see a little bit more use of transit there so we can, see the ridership to keep that system. And I'm also excited on another note for the Clean California funding. Wearing my other hats, I had the pleasure of being part of 2 of the proposals that were funded. So I'm really excited to see some of those projects move forward. Such a cool new funding source. And I really hope to see that program grow over time, because it essentially deals with beautification and litter abatement and, getting people out and about and walking and using parks in their community. So all of the things that we as electeds often hear that we need. So glad to see more of it.
Yes, thank you. And I was part of that North State Deal meeting, and they did an awesome presentation on that Clean California. And they also had a, what would you call it? A rubbish count. And I can't remember, I wrote it down, but I don't have it in front of me. But the area that they did this cleanup at, they collected more tires than there were people in that area. So it was crazy, but it took a lot of rubbish out of the environment. So any other comments, questions? Mayor Captain Salazar.
I just wanted to update all of you that after you so generously nominated me to put my name in the hat for the road charge program, technical assistant committee, I was able to actually go. They had their meeting the same week as ours. So I popped in and just watched it, and it definitely seems like a reasonable thing. And Susan was right. It is interesting. And so they had just added a member or 2, so I'm not sure, but my name was put forth. So we'll see if they're still looking for people. I'll keep you guys updated, but I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. And I'm glad you got to check in and be a part of it anyways. And thanks for that. And Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to update that we're continuing to work with Humboldt County Public Works and the Eureka tribe to try and get the KTNet system back up and running between Willow Creek and Hoopa, Wichita, Orleans. Very, very important route. So there's still negotiations going on with that. Eureka tribe wanted to really increase the runs and actually service Orleans as well. And it came in at about twice of the amount that we currently have. But when you think about underserved communities, oh boy, that's a huge one. And so anything we can do to try and make that one happen would be just so critical for the Trinity Valley folks. They often get forgotten over the hill over there, and so I just want to put in a plug for figuring out how we can get that back up and running. COVID hit it really hard, like so many of the systems. I'm really glad to hear Samoa is coming back on. And anyway, anything we can do with Trinity Valley would be greatly appreciated. And I apologize, Mike had to jump out, so I'm back alone here. So yeah, we got you covered either way, right?
All right, thank you. Any other questions, updates, comments? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for your participation, and we will be adjourned. See you in April.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, everybody. Hi, Jack. Nice to see everybody.
Happy St. Patty's Day.
Yes. Going
Call an Uber.
now.
Call an Uber.